welcome to Venture with Grace. I'm so sorry because I've never done real life podcast before, and then lately StreamYard has all kind of issue. Don't worry about the Instagram; it's just literally not worth it. And then there's so much connectivity issues. Sorry StreamYard, but StreamYard, God, please let us live and stuff. But I just want to say, first of all, I'm so glad that you're here in person because obviously you look so AI'd. I just want to say that. Um,
I'll take that as a compliment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say you're very your entire feature are very, very sharp and clear and stuff like that. Okay, so let's start with personal growth, right? So I think you had some founding as a you have worked as a founder and then you have worked in product management in various different roles from Workday to Microsoft before you started your own company. What are some core career lessons that you've learned early on in your career kind of shape you into who you are today?
Even before career, I think starting with school was really important for me because I hated school. I did not want to sit inside a classroom. I wanted to, every time that my parents dropped me off, I would run outside and scream and say I don't want to go to school. And I always felt like school was a prison. It's not that I didn't like learning. I had great teachers. I had a great time meeting new friends, but just the idea of sitting in a classroom and regurgitating information, it felt really, really boring, and I didn't feel stimulated. So I always like to build things, actually take things apart. I broke so many things at home. Uh, that was my experience, and whenever I went to college, I realized that I wanted to also build stuff, and there were a lot of great clubs on campus. There was hackathons on campus. Penn Apps is run at UPenn, is one of the largest hackathons there. There was even a student venture program where you can go be a VC and then invest in startups. So I did everything. I spent more time doing the club stuff than actually the coursework. I mean, I did well in school, graduated top of the class. All that was great. But I always tell my mom the degree was for her as Asian household.
Yeah.
But I just hated school, and even to this day, I don't know if I would want my kids to go to college.
Wow.
But I was not a fan of school. But what I learned doing those internships, doing all those stuff was you learn a lot when you're right in the mix of things. So I did several internships growing up, and then I also worked on a couple startup ideas with MBAs that were a little bit older, and I learned a lot on what not to do, what to do, and that kind of gave me my formative experience. After Penn, I went off to Microsoft, spent a year there, just about a year, and amazing company. It was on the up around that time in 2016, but I felt like I wanted to do something more than the traditional 9 to 5. I knew early on that I wasn't built for a 9 to 5. I'll work 100 hours for myself, but I don't want to work 40 hours in a 9 to 5 sort of setting. It felt again like a classroom, and ended up leaving Microsoft, moving out to Boston, starting a company with Sam. And then I had one condition with Sam, which was I need to be on the West Coast. I don't want to be in Boston to start a company. So I moved out to San Francisco, started Fireflies just around here, and the rest is history.
Yeah, totally. I feel like Fireflies was popping up during the Zoom era, especially I feel like everyone started a Zoom meeting and then there's a note taker, which I feel like it was so useful because most people don't really remember what's going on in the meetings, no matter how much notes you're actively taking, and then it makes people feel a lot more presence in the room. Why don't we talk about before we go into the product itself, maybe we could talk about who is on your personal board of advisors when it comes to building a successful company.
When we started, it was pre ChatGPT, 5 years before ChatGPT, right? So AI was just hypothetical at the time. And when we go out to investors, a lot of people's first question is this even possible? Today, it's obvious that with LLMs, you have language understanding and you can build really powerful tools. But back then, we built Fireflies in the natural language era. There was no ChatGPT to skyrocket our business. But three things really helped when we scaled the business. One was COVID actually made everyone want to use an AI note taker because you're having Zoom exhaustion. You're going 8 meetings back to back, and you don't know what you actually remember saying in those meetings. The other one is the transcription technology got significantly better. And then the third was around 2022, ChatGPT and the API came out, which automatically like boosted our product 10x. Like I think in a span of 2 months, we made our product better than what we did in 2 years with the launch of ChatGPT. And we knew from that point on, it's just going to be a race to see who can build the best product. We had really good distribution from the COVID days because everyone was using Fireflies, and now we had a really good product that can justify that demand. And then from 2022 to 2023 to now, we were growing faster than we did during COVID, despite everyone was using video conferencing back then. And advisors, my contrarian take here is if you're a startup founder, so much content is online. You can learn everything on the internet. I honestly learned how to code. I learned how to do everything, just Stack Overflow, YouTube. I didn't know what SaaS was when I started Fireflies, but then I started reading SaaStr. That was my first introduction. I didn't need to go to business school. In fact, don't waste 200K in 2 years on business school. If anyone tells you that you should go to business school before you start a company, don't listen to them. Run away from them. Terrible advice. I just genuinely believe that kids these days are so much smarter, and you can learn things so much faster with Perplexity and ChatGPT. Everything you need to know to build a $1 million company, $1 billion company, you can learn online. So don't fall prey to advisors and people that are going to misdirect you. I think kids are a lot smarter today. YC, that's a great place, but otherwise, don't waste your time with any of these advisor stuff.
For sure. I totally agree with you because I kind of feel like there is definitely particular skill that you could seek out advice for, let's say for example sales or like some other like specific subject expertise, but you can't really learn like entrepreneurship as a whole. Like no one's gonna give you like a blueprint or like a map or something. I wanted to quickly say hi to some of the audience comments. Obviously we're slow, but like I think there's some sort of a connectivity issue. But hi Aman, hi Karen. Okay, so we'll also do the like we'll also like edit this afterwards. So everyone relax. But anyway, so yeah. So I wonder what is one skill that you feel like is matter most important for you as an entrepreneur?
Someone that has high agency, that's a self-starter. You don't want to be there constantly nudging, nagging people to do things. When we interview people too, I look at basically their resume, ask them about a project, ask them about something that they delivered. I ask them how long it took, and then have them tell me if they were to do it again, how would they do it faster. And usually you can tell by the excuses or lessons learned, because you always want to learn. We all make mistakes if you want to learn. But if there are things that can be done in a matter of days, I want something done in 2 days, not 2 weeks or 2 months. And a lot of times if you're at a big company, something that can take 2 days to finish will take 2 years. And it's just really, really bad. So we always say, like, if you want to be at a place where there's like no bureaucracy, high agency, and that's a word I really like using these days, because those self-starters are just able to move at lightning speed. And it's never a trade-off between speed and quality too, because those people are very smart. They can also execute really quickly. And in fact, I think the best people move faster. And this should have been done yesterday type mindset. If you want that in your company, like, you need to start with yourself as a founder, and then you need to have that DNA, and you need to really grow it and nurture it. So that's the most important thing. You can have really smart PhDs, really smart people, but I will take someone that is a high ceiling, someone has high potential to learn, but has high agency. They will overlap the smart person that doesn't have the drive.
I wonder, so like piggyback on the hiring part. Speaking of hiring, you need to pay them salary. Speaking of salary, you need to think about like fundraising and also like making money from your own company. I really like your perspective from the past podcast. So I really like your perspective about like you need to depend on yourself instead of like constantly fundraising to like sustain a company, which I thought was like really impressive that you guys have been like not actively raising for a long time. Why don't we talk about, like, at the beginning, what does it look like for you to fundraise? And back then, I feel like the meeting app was not one of the most popular sector to to kind of like innovate in, because nowadays, we'll talk about the competition soon, because there's like 400 people that are doing meeting notes, but obviously Firefly is like very on top of there. But let's start with, like, the fundraising part, and then we could talk about um, you know the part of like generating revenue.
Yeah, fundraising. I want to start by saying I have immense respect for people that bootstrap. I know there's some people out there that'll go and dunk on people that bootstrap. Bootstrapping is really hard, and I wish we did that for longer. We did it for 1 to 2 years. You can move fast and still bootstrap in the AI age, but I don't like it when anyone talks crap about people that are bootstrapping. And the other thing is, in a hype cycle, anyone can raise, but the faster things come, the faster they go. There are hundreds of AI tools, SaaS tools, software tools today. It's overwhelming. And yes, we can say AI is amazing, but there's also a bubble, and 90% of these companies may or may not exist. And people are raising money, as much money as they can, as frequently as possible. I think that's a recipe for disaster. That's something we didn't want to do, even during the ZERP era, during 2021, or even during the AI era. We get investors knocking every day, right? So I believe fundraising should be treated like medicine. In right doses, it can be helpful. It can cure the illness. But if you take it too much, you can OD on it, and it's very poisonous. And what I see more often in Silicon Valley, not to harp on Silicon Valley, is people think it's cool to raise funding and then do a big TechCrunch announcement. And that's when the real work starts. That's when you have to actually do all the hard work. That's when you get on the hamster wheel. And I'd like to see the faces of your investors after you raise at a $10 billion pre-valuation. What happens when you don't live up to your growth metrics? So I don't buy into all that. Like, there is a time and place for it. When we raise money, initially we took small checks from people that were within our professional network. I actually did not want to take any money from family or parents or friends. I had one friend that gave me a $25,000 check at the time, because I had literally a couple weeks before I couldn't make payroll. At the time, we were hiring contractors. We were doing whatever we could to make things work. And we were just catching up, but that friend's $25K check now is worth like $1.5 million. So great ROI for him, but I didn't want that risk of, if things didn't work out, I didn't want like friends or family to get impacted. So I have a golden rule: never mix friends and family with business. So we took these small checks, and then eventually in 2019, we realized, hey, we need to give this product out for free. We need to hyperscale. We need to build out the infrastructure. We can't just be piecing things together with contractors. We have to actually build an in-house team, and we're going to have to spend money to make money, right? So we ended up raising our seed round from Canaan Partners. They did a 4.5 million seed. In that round, there was some really amazing angels that came in. We had the CEO of Segment, which is a company I really respect, the chief product officer, April, from Slack, folks that were early at Salesforce, Dropbox, all these PLG companies I really admired. That was really cool. I still was a little bit salty when I applied to Stanford and I didn't get into Stanford for undergrad. And I ended up having Stanford invest in Fireflies through one of their funds. So I couldn't get into Stanford, but I've at least given a class at Stanford and had them invest. So I hope that's good enough for my Asian parents.
Oh my God, congratulations.
But that was my seed round. And then COVID happened. We launched in January 2020. A few weeks later, COVID happened. Things were crazy. They were all over the place. We ended up raising our Series A at the end of 2020, early 2021. That was Khosla Ventures. Vinod Khosla and team, they came on. They were very forward-looking. One of the main reasons as well was I really liked what Vinod said when he said 70% of VCs add no value, and in fact 90% add negative value. I'm like, he gets it, like, and I respect this, and they're very big on long-term bets. And at the time, the AI meeting space was not obvious. So kudos to them. They like took that leap of faith, did the Series A just as we were taking off, and I think it was transformational when Vinod was able to get us early access to OpenAI, like without me even asking, introed me to like Sam Altman. We got that set up, and then our product just got infinitely better. So fundraising definitely had a great impact on our business. If I was building an enterprise business where I could have bootstrapped it, I would have done that. But I needed to build a product that is used by millions of people. It's like video streaming, voice AI, which is really expensive. So we needed that capital in order to scale.
For sure. I wonder, so you mentioned about like Vinod Khosla introduced you to the OpenAI people. So at the beginning, how did the conversation happen?
With OpenAI, there used to be this like monthly dinner that one of our VCs used to host, and I'd meet like people on their team. We'd talk about, hey, the API is going down or it's acting a little wonky, but they were so receptive to feedback. They moved very quickly, and despite being a company that's raised a lot of money, hired a lot of people, they had that DNA of a startup, so they moved very quickly. In fact, in one of their customer advisory sessions, they specifically said, we had Fireflies constantly stretch the limits of our API in the early days. So that was really cool. We were doing so many simultaneous tokens and processing with them. But yeah, they move fast, and we work with Anthropic. We work with a lot of the larger providers, but these companies are just on another level. It's not even like we're application layer, but the infra companies have done something phenomenal.
For sure. I wonder, since I guess like that's one of the obviously very phenomenal partnerships, but another one I would say would be like Zoom. So I wonder at the beginning, how did the Zoom conversation started, and do you have outreach, or like did they reach out to you, or how did they become like a, I guess like a very critical partner to you guys?
In the early days, there was no partnership. We just started building bots that joined Zoom meetings, and it was a gray area. We didn't know if that was allowed or not, and then we started building the bots, and then we spoke with higher ups at Zoom. There was also a period when they were putting in some sort of regulation in terms of how bots should be administered, because you don't want bots to be entering meetings that they shouldn't be entering. You don't want people using that to like Zoom bomb and other things like that. So there were times when there was a little bit of friction, but I got connected straight up to Eric, spoke with their leadership team, and in fact we helped them in terms of representing what other bot companies would want. So it's almost like you're writing bot legislation for the Zoom ecosystem, and then other companies quickly followed, like Google and Microsoft. Being one of the most used products on top of Zoom, that really helped carry some weight. In fact, I had a bunch of my competitors reach out to me and say, hey, could we all go in unison and like make a statement and with Zoom and like talk to them. So that was really interesting. But we're now like an approved product API on top of Zoom. But when we first started, it was a lot of gray area. And the whole bot thing, when we started, like we essentially built that out. No one else was doing it. And then a lot of people fast followed. And in fact, now you have like dedicated companies that will help manage your bots for you. And it's just an API call. So we had to build all that infrastructure ourselves because there was no playbook. But once Firefly started taking off, other companies said, this is effective, let's go also build a bot that joins your meetings, right?
I wonder, I really love that, like you have to hustle to like build the mini step between like the next stairs to like, you know, yourself basically. And I wonder, when you just talk about like competitors, right? So like now they've reached out to you because you guys become like one of the core, you know, fundamental transcription app. And nowadays, like, you know, there's so many people that are building in this area. So from some of the unicorn companies to just like startups that started by entrepreneurs who have been building different things for a long time, who are very successful. On our show, even there was like a multiple different ones. I wonder, how do you think about competition in general?
The politically correct answer that people will give is don't worry about competition.
Yeah.
Focus on your customers and everything will be great. I think about competition every day. I think about what can kill us in 100 200 different ways every single day. That's part of my job. And how do we counteract that, and how do we keep getting better? Just because we have that distribution, it's not the right mindset to think that we're invincible. We have to actually be acting very judiciously, because the moment I think that I'm invincible, that's when I'm the most vulnerable, and someone will come out of the blue and overtake you. There are people that are itching to eat market share, and there's a lot of copycats, there's a lot of these sort of things. So we look at competition, we learn from competition, we look at what we can do better. And for us, when we started, this was a very hard technological problem to solve. Now it's been solved, so a lot of people can just go put together a bunch of APIs and build a product. So that's definitely a thing that we're aware of. So we have to take Fireflies to the next level, like what's beyond note taking. And for us, that is turning Fireflies into an AI teammate and making the whole Fireflies product a platform. So we've launched an app store where we have over 200 different apps. Fireflies can do lots of different skills beyond just taking notes. It can do your meeting prep, it can write your reports, it can create emails, it can score your candidates, it can analyze your calls. Anything that a human would have to do after the call ends, Fireflies will start doing that while the call is happening itself. We have real-time notes, which we came out with 6 months ago, that's being used by millions of people. So there is a whole lot of stuff that's happening on the platform. Most people know Fireflies as the note taker, but Fireflies is really this like ecosystem of AI apps around meetings. And we also want to make Fireflies this teammate that, one, you can talk to in meetings with our recent announcement. Two, it can coach and guide you quietly, silently. And then three, we'd love for Fireflies to just go take some meetings on your behalf, because I hate meetings. I don't like to go to meetings. That's why I built Fireflies.
Totally. You said this on a different podcast that like in the future it will be like an agent talk to another agent before we even have a conversation, which I actually like. I feel like a lot of my friends notice that like when they go on Zoom meeting, there may be like literally no one's there, but there's like Fireflies are there. So I wonder, maybe we could talk about like the strategic side of things. So you mentioned that like, you worry about competition. I do too. But I think like I constantly read about the Amazon core leadership principle. Though I mean, I'm by no means I've like never worked at Amazon, but I just like thought the leadership principle was like so good that like I
It's
feel like
amazing. Yeah.
it's about like focusing on your customer instead of the competition. So I always educate myself like that's the way it should be. But like I feel like it's really hard to sleep when you're seeing people. I don't fear like the people who are playing the same game as me. I figure like if I play a game, for example, focus on a certain feature of the product, or like focus on like a aspect of something, that I'm already know that like I could be like a plus player, in that category without even like trying as hard as like most people. So I feel like that's one way to look at like how to approach it. But on the other hand, I do feel like, personally as a founder myself, I fear of like the people who are playing a complete different game, right? So they enter the game using a complete different strategy. How do you think about like the effective way to think about competition? And then number two is like, what are the product strategy, or like maybe I guess like the roadmap that you've thinking, that will set Fireflies apart? Obviously, we talk about turning it into a platform, doing a bunch of different products associated to the meeting ROM. However, like, is there something that you particularly focus on first versus like these are other like five different other stuff? Or do you feel like it's more of like having like a bunch of offerings will kind of like help you stand out?
That's a good question for our product discussions. You should just join our PM
Oh
six.
yeah, please take me.
The biggest thing for us, something I admire about Amazon is like customer obsession. And there's so many Jeff Bezos quotes about being obsessed with customers. We take that to a whole nother level. I read every single customer feedback, NPS survey,
Wow.
churn log. Anytime a customer says they are churning and they say they're churning to a competitor, we reach out, we learn about it, and we improve our product. So Fireflies is not perfect, but we are going to be the one that's moving the fastest, and we're going to be constantly like improving our product, looking at our data, making those changes. So I'd say obsess over your customers all day, all night, but be aware of your competitors, because they could come out with a completely different form factor that you're not aware different user behavior. So we're constantly learning, and at our scale, there's a lot of data we can gather and learn from just by putting things out in the wild. And people will use your product completely differently than you expect. ChatGPT was an entire experiment. It was a research experiment that they put out, and now it generates 80% of their revenue. You never know until you put things out there, and the path only becomes clearer as you take each step forward. So as we start building these things, there are certain gaps that we've learned that we want to improve on. There's certain things that make Fireflies uniquely have their own advantage, right? One is with our bots, I can have Fireflies go attend meetings on my behalf. Or, like you said, maybe my bot joins and then your bot joins, and then they're able to catch up in the future, this hypothetical future. So we want to play to our strengths in that regard. Also, for us, security, privacy, making sure that we are not doing something behind people's backs, that's really important for us. Because if you're using a silent recording tool, or you have some tool that's going to help you cheat in the background, and then you get caught by the administrators, that's a whole problem. Like, and a lot of these tools, especially companies, become fairly smart at detecting if you're using some sort of tool right in the background. So we want our AI to be ubiquitous, but we also want our AI to be aware of, like, everyone to be aware that you're using Fireflies in a meeting. So that helps as well with perception, with marketing. We probably got tens of millions of dollars of marketing from seeing that Fireflies note taker tile in your meetings. So all of these sort of things are like what make Fireflies have a different strategy versus other products that are taking a different avenue. And then through that, we want to make sure that when we build this as a teammate, it can start doing all these like repetitive, mundane tasks. Like, I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, 80% of mundane tasks are completely going to be gone. So why not just let Fireflies help you do all the busy work so you can stay focused? That is what's really appealing to our users. So just on that, we have years of work that we can do and dig deeper there.
For sure. I wonder, since, as a CEO of a company, you have to think about the product, the team, and building the general strategy for the company. And then there is a component, maybe not as big as like other AI companies, but I guess like the investor aspect, like fundraising, and I guess like generate revenue, like everything considered all together. How do you spend your time every day?
One of the most important things I had to learn was sales is important in every aspect of your job, not just selling to customers, but when you are pitching investors, when you're trying to convince someone to join your company. Sales is like a skill that I realized I hated the idea of sales, because every time I thought about salespeople, I think of the slick car salesperson that's making you sign a really expensive contract and a monthly payment on a car that you don't need. Whereas sales is a way to put your thoughts together, communicate clearly, put together a convincing argument, and you need to be effective. Sales is influence, and influence is what gets you funding, what gets you customers. So that's on a macro level. You are constantly talking to people. I feel at our scale, and for most startups, even whether you're a 5-person company or a 5,000-person company, almost all problems are people problems, right? If you have a bad product, you need to probably level up your product and design team. If you are moving slower, it might be a culture problem. If you have salespeople that are just not well trained and taking a long time to respond, that's a people problem. So at a certain level, everything is a people problem, and having great people, training them and empowering them is like the most important thing. And I think I have one tendency, which can also be detrimental, is I don't like to give up on someone so fast. So I want to like keep making it work, and I don't want to let someone go. I feel like I can really like change them, train them, but sometimes that can be detrimental because they were just not the right fit, or we're not the right fit for them, and it can really slow you down. So I think spending more time with people, whether it's our teammates, which I like, or our customers, and then also our investors, that's like where I spend a lot of my time. But I also like to get into the nitty gritty. Like, I know everything that's going on, from the code reviews to what changes are happening, what new vendors we're bringing on, what price negotiations are happening, what is happening with our legal team and our ops team. So I like to be very nitty gritty, very hands on, and then also have the ability to zoom out and understand the big picture because founders, you have the context,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're a fully remote company and not
Mm-hmm.
everyone's in the same room, you have to put all these different people together
Mm-hmm.
and drive context. And I want to give people autonomy, but I also want to lay down the road and the guardrails so that they're not steering off the cliff, right? So that's what you're doing as a founder. And sometimes you're just rolling up your sleeves and actually doing the work because you don't like the output and you want to go back and iterate on it. So I also feel that you get a lot more respect from your teammates when you know what is actually going on rather than just being a pencil pusher, people manager. I don't like people managers. In fact, our culture is that if you want to be a design manager, you need to be the best designer on the team. If you want to be an engineering lead, you need to be one of the most respected engineers in that team. Similarly, like if you want to be a sales leader, you better have closed the most deals. And we like to hire and promote up rather than hire top down.
I feel like the promote within your own company is a lot better than you just hire someone from outside the organization just because like not everyone have the full context and then you have to kind of like reshape their brain on like what's working in their previous company because every company is technically different. I wonder when you first become a CEO, how do you think like your mindset kind of shifted from day one? You know, how because I think as a founder turned CEO, it's a lot different than a professional manager just because it is your baby. You started from like the ground up. Like every day you were coding and selling and just doing customer service yourself to like eventually turn it into something scalable. How do you kind of reboost yourself? And is there any action that you took to advance your own management skill?
Yeah, I didn't take an MBA to start with.
Mm-hmm.
I took no management courses.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe read a few books here and there, but everything is like learning by doing. A lot of the stuff that I do is probably not advice. I don't do one on one meetings, I have very few recurring meetings. I like to have my calendar empty. But my whole idea is that if you have an issue, come to me right away with it. Let's talk about it. Like, I don't want to wake up the next day and solve it. I want to solve it right now, or at least get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to have things fester up. Like it's when, for example, people are in relationships, they start to like resent the other person. It builds up over year, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, how did that happen? Like I don't like that drama. Like it's like if there's an issue, talk to me right now. Let's like sort it out, or let's figure out how we can like solve it. Same thing with my team. If there's anything that comes up, send it, Slack, message me, and then you'll get an answer within a few minutes, within a few hours at the latest. And when I'm willing to do that, I expect my teammates to be able to move like that. And then you eliminate a lot of bureaucracy, you eliminate a lot of the corporate politics. There is no corporate politics at Fireflies, it's too flat for that. And hot take on professional managers, middle managers, I think they're the first people that are going to get cut by AI because
Mm-hmm.
AI is just going to go through and flatten out orgs left and right. In our company, we really respect individual contributors and we want to give individual contributors as much scope to succeed as possible. In fact, individual contributors have the ability to make more money than managers in our company. And we want to have very few managers. You want to be self-managing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm sure at some point in time we'll write like our playbook for building our company
Mm-hmm.
and how we're able to do this by keeping our headcount under 150 people for so long. But if you have really great individuals that have come together and aligned on a long-term vision, you
Mm-hmm.
don't need managers to be honest. Now, if you're a 1,000-person company, you're going to need managers because so much of that information needs to bubble up to you. And that's when you have that hierarchy style setup. But we want to keep our org flat and small for as long as possible. And a lot of these investors these days are saying, I'm just waiting for that next 10-person company that will build the next unicorn, or the next one-person company that will build a unicorn. I don't know if what that number is, but we wanted to build a unicorn with just a 100-person company, and we were able to do that pretty effectively, breaking all the rules.
For sure. I wonder since like you want to build a small company and then scale to billions of people, which you kind of already on the journey or already did lately. So like I wonder how do you think about I guess like the current, since you at the beginning you mentioned about like if you would bootstrap a company, you would. Lately, there's a huge trend of seed strapping. So like people raise a seed and then just like build or like generate a bunch of revenue, which is kind of what you guys did. What would be your advice for people who wants to kind of do what you're doing right now, which is raising enough money to fill the growth, but like also like just build a very sustainable revenue stream.
I'll caveat this by saying that if you need capital to grow in certain industries like
Mm-hmm.
robotics, absolutely raise capital.
Mm-hmm.
Like this works specifically for certain types of businesses that are SaaS, PLG, flywheel type businesses
Mm-hmm.
where capital is not a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
At our scale, we've been profitable since 2023. We haven't needed capital since a long time. And when we look at our balance sheet and look at our investments that we need to make, the bottlenecks might be hiring great talent. Bottlenecks might be focusing on the right roadmap, but it's rarely for us capital. But for other companies, they need to spend a lot of money. They need to do a lot. We haven't done any like paid marketing till this year,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like another interesting thing because when I go and talk to other founders, to get just their first 10 customers, they need to spend a lot on paid marketing, on enterprise sales reps, wining and dining, all of
Mm-hmm.
those sort of things. So we don't have any of that, and I'm very blessed and fortunate to have a market where we're like that. And instead, we put all of our money into making the product extremely affordable for our users and giving out a really robust free product and letting that be our marketing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
freemium is our market. Um, so I do think that if you have the ability to go build a business where you can generate a couple million in revenue with like 4 or 5 people, and I heard recently there was a company that was bootstrapped in 6 months and sold for $80 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're going to have a far greater return, especially at the point of an exit, if that's your goal, versus you dilute yourself down and you're a founder that owns like 1 to 2%, you're about to go public. That doesn't excite me. Like both my co-founder and I care about ownership and control and the direction of the business. And if the team stays small and we're doing really well, we can really take care of our employees. That's why we did recently a tender offer where we were able to give liquidity to our early employees. So you don't need to constantly be raising money to give that sort of liquidity to people. And that temporary funding boost or secondaries you do after raising like a $500 million primary round, I think that's a carrot on a stick. I don't like that. And I would rather be in control of my own destiny. And so if you're a founder that have figured out a way to get to like 2 to 3 million in revenue without raising a seed or doing a small seed, and you know the path forward and you can be break even, go for it. Now, if you want to go build an infrastructure layer company, you want to go build the next Anthropic or OpenAI or robotics, I think I'm not the best person to give you that feedback on that. But there are certain businesses that need a lot of capital, like Uber. And I just think that if you're a first-time founder, it's great to aim for that,
Mm-hmm.
but your chances of success are a lot lower there than if you are focused on doing something that you can control, like a SaaS business. I'm not saying SaaS is easy. Now all these SaaS founders think, Krish, you think this is easy. It's not easy, but it's a lot better than having to go do like real world stuff, like manufacturing.
Do you consider yourself as a SaaS company or like consumer? Just because I think it's touch up on both sides. It is a work space product. Like I mean, I guess since you mentioned about like at dates, some people already use your product. Like I don't know if they're using it just for having casual conversation with friends or it was like actual like workspace. But like I've been using it in the workplace mostly. And how do you define the product category, and then how do you kind of find the right benchmark to evaluate yourself when there was no like significant competition?
Well, Fireflies is all about teams and in the workplace, and it has this prosumer element to it, similar products like Grammarly. But for us, from day one, our focus, our feature sets have all been for people in the workspace, in the workplace, for teams to use. We integrate with almost every tool you can possibly imagine, from Salesforces, the HubSpots, the Slacks of the world. And we wanted to have a rich API. So for people that are in sales and recruiting, ops, product management, project management, all of those sort of stuff, like Fireflies is tailored for that sort of set. It can very easily be used in education by journalists. We have a mobile app for in-person meetings, and we have probably tens of thousands of customers, hundreds of thousands of customers that are prosumers. But the bulk of our revenue, the bulk of our focus has all been on making a great product for teams, from our security to access control features. And I think it's cool that like a lot of people, individuals are using the product, but we're not going to stop them from using it. But we're not going to go chase like a completely different like use case. Slack had this really good point early on, is they were focused for teams, right, and workspaces and corporations. But then all these like communities were using Slack, right? Families were using Slack to run like have community. My co-founder has a Slack with his parents and his siblings. So people were using Slack for other use cases outside, for running hackathons and things like that. But they didn't go chase that. They kept their focus to teams. So our focus has always been and will continue to be teams. But the product, as it gets better, I'm sure prosumers will enjoy using it as well.
For sure. I wonder, when you were thinking about your own strength or superpower or unfair advantage, how do you identify your own strength to the product that you're building?
I think even set aside intellectual or technical or product know-how or design, any of that, my one thing is I like to compete. And when I look at competition, I first look at their team, and then I say, can I compete harder than them? Do I want it more than them? I think most of the people that want something have been able to get it, because if you religiously think about that day in, day out, every single day, you will make some level of progress. You'll be better than where you were a week ago, a month after that. So for me, I like to compete and I like to win. So that I played sports as a kid. I used to play video games. I like to compete. And that's where it starts. Because when I was in school too, like I was doing fine. I thought I was going to be like, I'll do something. But then someone had mentioned so-and-so got better grades than you, or so-and-so is on track to be valedictorian. And that's lit a fire in me. And so I didn't care about the subjects, but I said I'm going to get all A's and I'm going to do really well, because I don't want to be that person that's behind. So similarly, when we all compete, and I kind of brought this contagious energy to the entire team, when someone says, hey, we like your product, or I actually think this other product might be a little bit better, that lights a fire under all of our team to want to like move harder and prove people wrong. So my entire life was like just focused on like competing, and there's so many people that have wrote us off, so many people that like didn't believe in us. So both Sam and myself, like everything we've done was like to prove those people wrong. I know that sounds a little petty, but that literally, the reason I am where I am today is because I love to compete, and Sam loves to compete, and our team loves to compete. And then we channel that energy into really good product execution and speed and technical prowess. I'll give an example. Sam never worked at a company before Fireflies. He did an internship, that's it. He never worked at a big company. He's never worked at a software
I
company.
think I met his brother at a happy hour, who is a crypto founder who raised from some of the top investors too.
Yes,
So,
his brother is a
yeah.
crypto. I don't know anything about crypto, but
Yeah.
yes. But yeah, he never did, and then he's the CTO, and so many people came to him and said, hey, you need to go get advisors. You need to like go talk to people to, how are you going to scale this business to millions of users without that? He's like, no, I'll figure it out myself. And I don't think he really got any advice from any ex-founders or ex-CTOs on how to scale a business. Like, he figured it out himself. He figured out how to hire smart people. And that sort of like self-sufficiency is the ultimate strength that any founders can have. And for us, we just love to compete. We love to move fast. And unless it's rocket science or AI PhD research, I think everything can be figured out. And even in my family, I have a lot of doctors in the family. So I'm doing all this like research, right? Asking ChatGPT all these questions, and I go to them, and then, isn't this what causes this? Or like, isn't there some study there? And they're like, I don't know, man. I studied that like 10 years ago. So we just like very much want to learn and figure things out. And to be honest, school doesn't teach you that. It has to come from within, and you have to be in an environment where you just want to be constantly learning.
I love that. I totally agree with you on like figuring things out on your own. That's like probably one of the best characters. And even when currently I'm hiring like folks on my team, whether it's like part time or something, I really look for that quality. I feel like it is that mentality that help you succeed or help you like drive yourself to the next steps. And since like we briefly talk about the competition side of things, I guess like how do you turn that into like a positive mindset? If every day you just like worry, it's probably not going to be so effective. But every day, if you're thinking about strategizing, if you don't do work, it's like not going to work as well. How do you kind of come to a very calm and effective mindset to yourself when you are thinking about competition, since you mentioned that you like to compete, that kind of help you motivate yourself to like, keep going and then also feel confident about your own strategy? Because a lot of times I feel like I felt distracted when I'm seeing, oh, you're doing that, maybe we should like do that. But like on the other hand, I'm like think rationally, like would that make me better as a person or like as a founder myself, or make move my general company revenue goal forward? Sometimes, a lot of times it's not like, it's just like people are doing a trend. But how do you think about turning something that you've seen into effective playbook for yourself?
Ultimately, the customers are the judge of what you're building, and
Hmm.
are they going to pay for it, or are they not? So
Hmm.
first and foremost, we look at how customers are using our product, what they're saying, what they're requesting.
Hmm.
That forms most of our product roadmap.
Hmm.
We look at competition. Sometimes they're straight up copycatting, cloning us. Other
Hmm.
times they may be coming up with a new, different approach.
Hmm.
So there's always things you can learn. We're not arrogant enough to say we're the right way. There's always
Hmm.
things we can learn from other products and other companies. Not even
Hmm.
direct competitors, but other really cool AI companies, how they're doing their setup or their prompts. You can always learn from everyone.
Hmm.
The number one factor, though, is you have to have a belief in which how the world will look like and where your product fits into that world. And I was just at the gym this this past evening. I
Hmm.
checked into my hotel. I landed in SF. I checked in, and then I'm at the gym, and these two people were talking. Two people that were in tech were talking about something, and then I like jumped into the conversation. We started having a conversation, and they asked me, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I work at this company called Fireflies." Oh, I was like, "We use that at our other company."
Hmm.
Hey, this new company, my founder is like really interested in this other product. What are your thoughts on that? And he asked me the same question. Like, I feel like I see you guys everywhere, but
Hmm.
aren't there a lot of competitors? And every time I go home, my dad's like, "Hey, I heard there's another company like
Oh my
you
god.
guys." So it's just
Yeah.
like every time it's like competition, competition here, and then competition there. But the point is, you have customers, right? We're not
Hmm.
starting from scratch. Like, good luck if you're trying to build another AI note taker from zero
Today,
today,
yeah.
right? There's so
Hmm.
much competition. It's like a red ocean. When we started, it was a blue ocean. So we have all these customers. So we want to make those customers really happy,
Hmm.
and we want to build other products, other features, and other uh, extensions on our platform that will
Hmm.
make them really happy. And then we just take them through it.
Hmm.
And as long as we can like really own that customer journey,
Hmm.
I don't think all the other stuff matters.
Hmm.
The hardest thing to do is start from scratch. And then
Hmm.
when you have a set of customers, do whatever you can to make them
Hmm.
really happy and
Hmm.
take care of them. That's what makes us like build all these things for them today.
I think one thing you guys did really right was, I think you guys tap into a really broad market. A lot of these note taker are like famous in the VC industry, the startup note taking app, the scribe for doctors. So like there's a lot of like subsector companies that exist for a specific sector, or like thrive in one setting or generate meeting notes in one setting. But you guys are very broad. And I wonder, if you are thinking about go to market today, what would be one segment that you would target? Like, not that, like, I feel like nowadays, if everyone trying to start a Fireflies today, it's like
Mm-hmm.
probably very, very hard. But I wonder, at the beginning, maybe we could talk about the past, right? Like, so when you guys first started, who was the pro user at the very beginning? And how do you guys kind of like scale very fast to like a very broad range of people?
So there is pros and cons to building a horizontal SaaS product.
Mm-hmm.
You cover a lot of surface area, but then you have a lot of different ICPs, ideal customers, that want
Mm-hmm.
different things. You get
Mm-hmm.
pulled in 100 different directions, and when you
Mm-hmm.
go down 100 different paths, you get nowhere. So we had to really focus on building the core features that all of our broad user base would like. And now, this year, we've released Fireflies for finance. We have Fireflies for healthcare with a HIPAA version of our product.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Fireflies for sales, Fireflies for recruiters,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're using our app ecosystem to build all these vertical specific use cases.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are using Fireflies for recruiting, you're going to get specific recruiting style notes. You're going to integrate with all the ATS systems. We're going to have scorecards and ways to like score candidates and review all of the information from there. So all of the stuff that we built was more like platform,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you can build the building blocks. So I can build a vertical specific version of Fireflies in a week.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, all these verticals that are on top of the core Fireflies voice infrastructure is, I think each one could be like a $1 billion business, right?
100%. Yeah.
Some companies have done really good job with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you look at Monday.com, they built the core Monday project management,
Mm-hmm.
and then now they have all these verticals: Monday.com for sales, Monday for CS. Similar to HubSpot,
Mm-hmm.
they built their marketing automation and then their CRM. Now they have HubSpot for customer success and customer support. So we've done the same thing. We said, let's start with the horizontal capability. This is the reason why we need funding. If you're building a horizontal product, it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're building a vertical niche SaaS solution, I think that works pretty well because you have one ICP to go market to and sell to. So I also think in the world of AI, vertical specific SaaS is not going to last
Mm-hmm.
because it's so easy for these horizontal companies now to just go pick off each vertical. And I that's a contrarian take, but I just don't think vertical SaaS is as defensible as it was 5 years ago. Like software is eating the world, AI is eating software, and
Software.
if you and I've seen a lot of vertical specific SaaS products that are actually inferior than the general products, but they're just very good at marketing and sales to that particular ICP, so they own mindshare. The last point I want to make about all these SaaS tools is I'm an AI. You probably use these new AI SaaS tools every single day, but there's way too many. Even for me, like every day there's a new tool, a new update, new product. So even if I can't keep up and you can't keep up, I don't know how like the everyday user is going to be able to keep up with all these tools. There's going to be consolidation, and I absolutely agree that if you have mindshare, if you have distribution, and you have a good product, you have something that 99% of people were not able to cut through the noise. So now you're in the driver's seat, and if you mess up, it's in your hands, right? So I don't think people are going to be able to use this many tools and keep up. There's just too many. So I don't know, maybe in the future, ChatGPT just becomes that tool, one tool that does everything for you. Until then, we want to continue building the best AI product for the workplace possible.
I wonder, since you have been building the company for a while, and since like you guys have launched sector specific products, how do you think about the insights that you took from these different subsegment? Is there like, is the doctor using it the same way as a recruiter? I mean, obviously it's not going to be the complete the same, but I'm sure, I guess, like when it comes to building the product itself, like is the challenge the same, or would it be like a very different way to, you know, I guess like structure the meeting notes, or like extract a certain aspect of things?
I actually think 90% of the product is the same for everyone. It's the last 10% that you customize, you tailor. It's just the marketing and sales that people do make people think that the product is like infinitely different. You're using the same stack. It's almost all the same. It's just the last 10% that's different. And then for us, if we've perfected the 90% for 5, 6, 7 years now, so that focusing on that 10%, and even that 10% can be built using building blocks, it's very, very like straightforward for us. But when we launched Fireflies for finance and we were trying to go get our initial customers, I had no idea we had tens of thousands of financial advisors already using Fireflies, the general version of the product. Now it's only going to be better for them that they have a tailored solution where they have tailored summaries for finance and tailored integrations for finance. So I honestly think when I look at anything, I try to take the 80-20 or 90-10. What's that 90% that's going to benefit everyone? And then we'll do the 10% later.
In terms of unit economics, how do you think about building a revenue sustainable product? So when I first started my business, my husband actually sent me a study that, like, you have to keep the first like 3 years 50% and up margin, or like I guess like there's like a certain stats on, like, you have to have really high profit margin to sustain your company to go forward as a bootstrap company. But for venture backed company, how do you think about the profit margin and unit economics? Obviously, no need to share any data, but
I don't
yeah.
know if venture-backed companies even care about margin.
Oh yeah, literally,
No,
like,
they're just
yeah,
like spend
negative
as much
margin,
money as
amazing,
possible,
exactly.
burn as much money as possible. As long as you're growing, we'll fund the next round in good times.
Yeah.
That's the VC mindset, right? For venture-backed companies, and you end up getting pulled into that.
Yeah.
For us, we just said after we raised our Series A, we never want to raise funding again. We want to be in control of our own destiny. We actually wanted to do that at the seed, but then the Series A happened during the pandemic. Things were accelerating, and after that, like, yeah, we were within the next 1 year, we became profitable. But when we started, our power users were costing us money. Like, a user would be paying us, but we would be losing more money on them because they were using it so much. That's a good problem to have, but that can be really crazy. And I always say, like, it doesn't make sense to spend $5 to make $1. That's 90% of venture capital backed businesses. So we had to turn the ship around, figure out how to build our own infrastructure, manage our own costs. When you're using LLMs, when you're doing voice, when you're doing transcription, that's insanely expensive. So even today, as we compete with all these upstarts, I'm pretty confident that they are burning a lot of money to make money. And we're using our economic cost advantage, economies of scale, to essentially flood the market and give out our product for free or a really affordable price. So for us, like, we have healthy margins, but that was actually a byproduct. We didn't really focus on margins when we were building. We just said, hey, we're losing money here, and we need to make sure that we get profitable or break even at some point in time. And we mapped it out, and we got there exactly the month that we planned to get there, 2 years out from our Series A. So that was a really interesting experience. But we also have the ability to lower our margins to blitz scale faster. We don't just have to raise capital. We can do that as a leverage point. So there's a lot of little interesting things that you can do. But there's also an advantage because you look at all these LLMs, they've cut their cost 1,000x in the last couple of years. So eventually the commoditization of LLMs and infrastructure, or maybe even SaaS as a whole, makes people wonder. And again, this is controversial. SaaS today has amazing margins, amazing profit margins, gross margins. But will it be like that forever? And if everyone is building SaaS, and there's so much abundance of SaaS, and SaaS is super cheap and it's a race to the bottom, is SaaS even going to be that differentiated? Like, software, is that going to be differentiated? Or, say 5 years from now, SaaS is going to be like, oh, do you like Coca-Cola or Pepsi? It's essentially the same thing, different branding, different flavor, in a similar can.
Well, the former CMO of Pepsi was on our show prior to this, so I would say Pepsi is different. So, but keep going.
I mean, Pepsi wins in a lot of blind tests, I heard.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But the thing is, you see in the airline industry or any of the consumer goods industries where the differentiation is very similar. Like, why someone pays $30,000 for a handbag versus $30 for a handbag. That's what I'm saying is, like, will SaaS get to a point where it's a commodity? Some will say it's already a commodity, and the only difference is you have branding and distribution.
Totally. I want to be mindful of the time, but hi, Taz. I wanted to say hi, whoever comments, or like whatever, like, the StreamYard God would like send in the comments. So it's not like all the comments make it to our portal. But okay, so I want to end with a one-man fire round for you. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book. Wow, I've loved The Power of Now. That was a great book that I read in school, and then I've read a lot of books around by Simon Sinek.
Hmm.
Those were really good.
Classic.
Yeah, growing up, I wrote my college essays on his stuff, and
Wow.
then I met him in person at like the Coastal Summit, and yeah, it was just like full circle. It was really cool.
What's your college essay about?
I think I don't know now. It's been like 10 years, but I just remember Start with the Why was like a video I
Yeah,
watched. So
start
it
with
was like
that.
the TED
Yeah.
Talk, and I realized like instead of focusing on what I want to do or how I want to do something, focus on like why I want to do something, and then work backwards. And that's how I approach everything in life now.
Love that. Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Biggest impact in my career. Oh, honestly, like every one of the founders that I know, they all watched The Social Network,
Hmm.
and they all saw like Mark Zuckerberg's like story from dorm room to building a
Hmm.
company, and I am obsessed with like the origin stories of like founders. So
Hmm.
the Mark Zuckerberg story definitely had a big impact on my journey. And right when I was in school, the show Silicon Valley came out,
Hmm.
and I was watching that, and I stopped watching it because it became too close to reality as we were starting our own business, all the mess ups that we were doing. So I would say like almost all the top like entrepreneur stories. I love the Acquired podcast where they talk about like how did Google get started, how did Facebook get
Hmm.
started. So it was never one person, but it was just like learning about all these entrepreneurs and how they got started. That was really really inspiring.
For sure. Who would you invite to a dinner party?
Oh, I have a lot of questions I'd want to ask Peter Thiel. He's very contrarian.
Mm. Uh, where can we find you outside work?
Outside of work, probably on the tennis court. I love watching movies, so I used to, when I had more time, I would watch one movie every week. And when I was younger, I'd watch like one movie every day. Now it's like one every month. But
Oh my god.
watch a lot
Still?
of
Wow.
movies, Indian movies, Bollywood movies, American movies. Just movies is a big part of my life. So yeah, you'd probably see me at like a movie theater.
Now I
Uh,
have to ask, what's your favorite movie?
oh my god, I used to love all the spy movies, like the old James Bond movies, the
Oh
Bourne
wow.
series, the Mission
The
Impossible,
classic.
all of yeah, all of these like sort of action movies, and then nowadays like the TV shows too, like Night
Hmm.
Agent and like Jack Ryan, all those things. I just love anything like spy thriller.
Love.
That's my stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Krish, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a wonderful conversation, and I'm sure our audience agrees, and some of them already commented. And thank you
Thanks.
again.
It was my first time doing a live stream, so this is cool. Thanks.
Amazing. Yay. Okay, so I think we can end stream.